Hello everyone, this is Raz and welcome back to the Anime Dungeon. On today's episode, I'm going to talk about the cyborg race. There's a lot of strange mechanics compared to the other races, so I thought it's worth at least talking about them for one episode. So to start off with the basics, their racial traits are that they get 2 constitution, 2 strength, and they get a -2 to charisma. Another thing worth noting is that any race can be a cyborg, so you could be a cyborg human like Frankie, or you could be a cyborg merman, or a cyborg fish person, or a cyborg giant even. But you do not get the original racial traits, you get the ones that I just mentioned. However, you do get the land and water movement speed of your original race. Another racial trait is that cyborgs have unnatural bodies, meaning that they cannot naturally heal. Whenever they are injured, they require medical attention. Poisons and diseases last twice as long as cyborgs because they have a poor immune system, so if you do not have a doctor in your party, being a cyborg will be very difficult because you can't just sleep to heal. You need to have someone take care of you. One other defining feature of the cyborgs is that they must consume a half a bottle of fuel to survive, and they can store 3 bottles of fuel by default. These fuels can be a normal thing like gasoline or oil, but they can also be any beverage such as cola, tea, fruit juice, etc. Like in the anime, Frankie uses cola as his fuel. When they are using the fuel that you choose, they act normally. However, if they're given a different type, it may shift their personality. Like if a cyborg who uses tea suddenly is filled with a bottle of hot sauce, it might cause him to be very irritable. Any type of water or any other liquids that don't have calories in them cannot be used as an energy source. If a cyborg's current fuel supply drops to a half a bottle or lower, they enter a low on fuel status. The low on fuel status causes the cyborg to take a -2 to strength and dexterity checks, and they can no longer run or charge. They may still use cyborg implants that use half a bottle or less of fuel. If they no longer have any fuel, their status changes to running on fumes. Running on fumes causes them to take a -6 on strength and dexterity checks, and they can't run, and they aren't able to use any of their cyborg implants. For running on fumes or low on fuel, as soon as the cyborg is refueled, they are no longer in this status. It is also worth noting that cyborgs consume half a bottle of fuel every day just to survive. And finally, the most important trait of cyborgs is their implants. Cyborgs start with 1 implant and they gain 1 more each 4 levels. By level 20, they will have 6 implants. Now, the PDF includes a pretty extensive list of different implants that you can have, a lot of them being based on Frankie since he's the main cyborg that we see in One Piece. But if you want to make a truly unique character, you can work with your DM to make up your own cyborg implants. I won't go over every cyborg implant because that would take far too long, but I'm gonna kind of talk about them a little bit. So like I said, you get 1 implant every 4 levels, and you start with 1. By level 20, you should have 6. You start with 3 bottles of fuel, but there is an implant that gives you an extra bottle of fuel, and you can take it up to twice, which means you'll have a maximum of 5 bottles of fuel. Every one of the cyborg implants uses some amount of fuel, ranging from half a bottle to probably 2 or 3 bottles. These are directly related to the strength of the ability in question. Some of them require other implants to function. Some examples of cyborg implants would be an air filter, which allows you to destroy harmful particles like bacteria, viruses, poison, choking gas, smoke, etc. It also allows you to inhale a large amount of this air to filter it out so your allies don't breathe it in either. That ability uses half a bottle of fuel. Another ability is the beam, which requires a hand cannon implant, which allows you to perform a ranged attack up to 200 feet away, and as a 2-round action, deals 3d6 plus 1d6 per 5 levels. So at level 20, this would deal 7d6. The target of this attack has to roll a reflex save versus 15 plus the cyborg's level to take half that damage. using that ability costs 2 bottles of fuel. So if you don't extend how many bottles of fuel you can have, you could only use that once. Then you have something like Centaur legs, which allows your legs to split lengthwise into 4 skinnier legs, and you run 10 feet faster on land. And this consumes a bottle of fuel every 10 minutes. So there's some things that will use the fuel instantly, some that will use it over a certain amount of time. Some things like the flail hand, which lets you make your unarmed attacks up to 20 feet away. That uses up half a bottle of fuel every time you attack like that. So there's different ways to spend your fuel. Now, I would be pretty concerned about trying to use this in battle, like if it's a really long battle. Even if you have 5 bottles of fuel, you make a couple attacks with your flail hand and all of a sudden you're down like 2 bottles of your fuel. And I get that that's a balancing point. So I guess the way you could counteract that would be to have a backpack with a couple bottles of fuel in it, or like be near your ship so you could run on your ship and get fuel, or have someone else in your party carrying fuel. Or depending on your career, maybe you could have a minion that carries fuel for you. I guess there's a lot of ways around the fuel limitation. It's just that would definitely be something to consider. Another thing that I would be a little cautious about, specifically as a DM, I guess, would be if a person wants to be a giant cyborg. There's nothing inherently overpowered with it, but it just seems kind of weird, I guess. Because, like, if we look at Frankie as an example, he would probably be a large size class person because he's like 10 feet tall. He's not a normal sized human, but he still uses these like little 2 liters of Coke or something like that as his fuel. But if you're a giant that's something like 30, 50, 100 feet tall, would a 2 liter of fuel really cut it? Or at that point, would you be using barrels of fuel? Which, if you're using barrels of fuel, all of a sudden your fuel cost is significantly more expensive than someone who's using bottles, so then it's not really fair towards you. But giants just kind of throw a wrench into everything, whether it be cyborg or otherwise, if you're going to have a giant character in your campaign. Because then you also need a large ship. So that is a huge tangent, but just be careful about letting people be giants in your game is all I'm trying to say. So I guess besides the things that I've listed up until this point, cyborgs are just another character. It's just like someone having a devil fruit power, basically. It's another level of things that they have to keep track of on their character sheet, in addition to their feats for all the different things. But hopefully this clarified any questions you had, and they're pretty straightforward, so I might not have even needed to make this. But if it helped, leave a like or something, write me a comment. If there's any kind of concerns you have, write me a comment, of course. And until next time, guys, this is Raz, and I'll see you again very soon.